Simon, thanks for your time. You were effusive in your praise of Ed Chamberlain last week. How pleased are you to get him in for the remainder of the season and on loan?
Yeah, really pleased. Obviously the player, the bloke as well. Speaks up, got an opinion, happy to pull other people, and you know it helps us a lot, because obviously we're having a lot of young people in the room. They're not always forthcoming early in their careers with their opinions or thoughts on what they're seeing on the screen or what's happening in training. So it's good to have one of them around, and yeah, obviously on the playing front, not only is he a good player obviously, but in a position or positions, the versatility will really help us at the moment.
That was going to be my next question, given your current injury situation, which we'll get on to, and displays from other players. Where do you see him slotting in initially?
I think over the last couple of years he's played just about everywhere. At the moment, centre, back row is where we'll be looking to use him.
Looking at recruitment for this season, how likely is it that any of the other signings for next year could come in for this, or is it fairly unlikely at this point?
I know you don't like me saying it, but it's probably one for Rich that I'm not aware. But listen, I think everyone's doing it pretty tough on the injury front. There's obviously still some movement going on, but yeah, we've got what we've got, and we'll do our best with what we have.
Again, probably questions for Richie, but unfortunately you're the man in front of us at the moment. In terms of that recruitment for this season, you spoke about it being tough because clubs don't want to let their players go, but also given the amount of other teams in the market for players at the moment, how difficult is it proving to try and get more bodies in? Yeah,
well, I'm not at the cold face of that. Rich is obviously the one having the conversations with agents and clubs and whatnot, but yeah, it's not rocket science. We've spoke about it time and time again. The depth at the moment across the league is probably not where we'd like it to be, as a game in general. So obviously off the back of that, this is what happens. You know, you're having to scramble around when you get injuries, and yeah, we're no different to a few other teams, I think.
What have you heard from Richie in terms of being able to bring any other players in before the weekend?
He's trying. I'm going to call him after this and see if he's got anywhere. I don't think we'll have anyone in this week. And to be fair, it wouldn't really work anyway, because we've only got one more session left before we play. So yeah, hopefully next week there's a bit of news on that. But yeah, I'll leave Richie to worry about that. We'll just have to get on with, as I say, getting on with what we've got.
Just in terms of outgoings, is it the case that Cam Scott's been granted an early release and has left the club?
Yeah, Cam's obviously moving on at the end of the year anyway. His injuries are pretty poor finish for him because of the time he spent at the club, and for us as a group it's poor in the sense that I think we were just starting to see in the few weeks before it what Cam can do. He had a bit of a stuttery pre-season, and obviously we got into the games and it's been tough, but when the team started playing better, I think we started seeing a bit more of Cam. So unfortunate, but yeah, he moves on with our best.
How have you found working with him?
Cam's good pro, really good pro. A good leader as well. Developing into a good leader within this particular group, and I think he would have been certainly someone in that leadership group, if you like, people that you lean on and whatnot and expect to guide the team around. He's got pretty good standards around all things attached to his game, how he prepares, recovers and that, so he's been good in that regard, and that'll obviously serve him well for however long he plays the game.
In terms of your injuries, you told us that Carlos Tumavave is a doubt for the Wigan game. How's he looking at this point?
Good. We trained today, absolutely fine. That decision will come more down to performance now as opposed to injury.
And then looking at your other injuries, Danny Houghton wasn't in the squad for the derby last week. What's the latest on his calf?
We probably need a little bit more info, but he's got a pretty significant tear in his calf. I don't think there's much calf left to tear. It's all scar tissue from all the past ones, but the rehab doesn't change, but it's on the larger scale, but we don't know exactly definitively. We need to do a little bit more investigation, I suppose, but yeah, the rehab won't change. He's got to tick boxes along the way, and hopefully he ticks them faster and gets back to the field, because obviously, although I don't know if it's dead and buried yet, but I think we've all planned this to be Danny's last year. I don't know if he's 100% committed to that at the moment, but it'd be a shame for him to miss too much. It'd be nice for him to get some games for us, wouldn't it? As a way to bow after being such a great servant, if that is the decision come the end of the year.
In the short term, how long is that rehab looking at taking at the moment?
I'd say minimum 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And then
he's done a week or so now, and
And then longer term, what has he said to you about this being his last season at this stage?
I think he signed on to try and help some of our younger players, and after a conversation with Tony, when I think he was going to hang him up last year, I think he generally feels quite good between the little bits and niggles that he picks up. But that'll be a decision for him, really. I'm not sure a player of Dan's who's displayed such commitment to this club and been a great servant. I'm not sure you boot them out the door. He's big enough and loves the club enough to make the decision what's right.
Going back to your other injuries, Linky Sound, Jack Charles playing through the pain barrier during the derby. How are they doing?
Yeah, all right. Physical game. The derby it was a decent game. A lot of pretty big contacts in amongst. Charles got a bit of traffic, as you'd expect. But yeah, they've all of them tipped up all right, to be fair.
So, final usual question: no other injuries then, or potential returning players for this game?
You get me every time on this. It's like totally blank. No, there'll be changes. Obviously, Tiaki won't be with us. Wigan being his parent club. That's just a standard. You don't play against your parent club unless there's no intention, I suppose, of you ever going back there. So, yeah, Tiaki, he's not with us, so there's a place there in the team, and yeah, as I said, we've not brought in. He's playing middle forward for us, so we haven't brought anyone in. Therefore, it comes from within, and one of our younger blokes will get an opportunity.
On the disciplinary side of things, Brad Fash wasn't charged after the derby. What was your reaction to that?
I like there were a lot of running in and all that within the game in those periods. Bit of emotion, as you'd expect. Yeah, it's not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That'd have been all. It could have been fists and all sorts. We're talking about a bit of a non-event, really. And obviously, that's what the match review panel found.
What did you make of what Elliot Minchella alleged then? It's not the first time.
Listen, I don't know too much about it. They've obviously got a bit of a history, I believe, but I know they shook hands on the field and walked off. So yeah, generally, it all stays there.
You also spoke to Richard after the game as well, saying it was embarrassing. A couple of players were going down, pretending maybe that they had an injury. How do you stamp that out? Players going down and feigning injury.
Referees doing something about it. It's an opinion, of course. It's not. I don't think it's isolated to that game. But obviously, I thought it happened a couple of times within the game. We had it against Leeds. It happened, and I'd be pretty annoyed if our players did it. To be fair, everyone's. I think the topic's quietened somewhat, but the head knocks and all that sort of stuff, and yeah, we don't want to change the game too much. Obviously, we're making changes to the game to try and limit impacts with the head and all those sort of things, and rightly so. But at the same time, if we're feigning or making more of things as players, you can't complain about it, which I've seen a lot of that, complain about this, that and the other. You can't complain about it if you're going to do that bit. So, I don't know. The green card, I think that was if you're down for a significant period, you're supposed to go off the field, and maybe if play's gone on, referee's not deemed it a penalty, you stay down, you require treatment, he has the chat in his ear and all that, maybe that's one of them, a way to get rid of that, get him off the field then if it needs properly looking at. Listen, sometimes people do get hurt. I'm absolutely on board with that, but I don't know, I just think we all sort of forever, us rugby league people, have bagged football for the play acting and carrying on. Just got to be careful we don't start going down that route.
Why do you think it has crept into the game?
Opportunity to pinch a penalty or whatever, or get an advantage. I think people are always trying to sort of old man the referee and come up with different ways, but I don't think it's ever been maybe making the most of such incidents as injury. It's more been getting away with tipping someone up at last second and just pretending you knew nothing about it sort of thing. These ones are a bit different.
Going back to your comments as well after the derby, you spoke about your players not having the quality to dip in and out of the game plan and what you've worked on in the week. Why do you think that has been happening?
Hell of a lot of change, a lot of young blokes in there, and it's it's pretty quick when they're out there when they're not used to it, as I've said as well. I think quality, I'd probably use the wrong word there because we have obviously got some quality in our team, but I think that's probably it. I mean, I think discipline's been an issue for us, not in the sense of giving penalties. Everyone's got that issue. We all give plenty away at times, but just discipline in general, discipline about getting it done properly, and holding our standards really, really high on that. And everyone plays quite similar, and we can all come up with a plan of where we can try and negate the opposition and take advantage of what we see as maybe some weaknesses or areas they might struggle in. But if you don't do it on repeat and do it a number of times, you never really get what you need out of it. So for us, it's about trying to get that discipline about how we're playing. Because if the best players, you've probably heard, I don't know, your Matty John's podcast and stuff, and they're talking through games where, Nathan Cleary's a standout name. He might do the same play 5 times and not pull the trigger once, and on the 6th one, because he's had enough pictures of it, he knows what's coming. On the 6th one, he'll pull the right pass, and they get the advantage to try, whatever it might be. So I think it's just allowing ourselves time to get more information by doing the plays over and over is what I'm after. Some might call that a boring way of playing, but at the same time, if you keep doing it, you eventually get some out of it, I think.
Is there anything else you can do as a head coach to make sure the players stick to the plan, or is it completely out of your control once they cross that line?
It's difficult, yeah. It sounds like an absolute cop-out when you say that as well, because everyone's like, it's your job to do that. Of course it is. And we can control that within training. We can go, no, start again. In a game, you don't get a chance to do that. We just have to keep hammering it home, practicing it, showing them why it works, showing them when it could have worked in the games gone by, and keep giving them that confidence to buy into it, which I think they do, pretty certain they do. None of them have been big enough to say they haven't yet, so we'll just keep plugging away with it. Hopefully it'll come for us.
How much is the warning this week then that if you don't stick to the plan, Wigan will hurt you?
I don't think we need to, do I? But again, obviously we have a look at the opposition, but not spending too much time worried about the opposition. When we're not pulling up our end as well as we could, we need to be looking at that. And again, we've got plenty of young kids playing at the minute. Wigan could have as well this week. But for us, repetition for those young kids is better than trying to change the game plan and worry about the opposition too much anyway. So we'll just continue to focus on us.
You mentioned the young players that Wigan could play and the injuries that they've got. How much does that underline the winning culture that they've got there, that they've been able to come through?
Yeah, they're a bit of a machine, Wigan, and they have been for a long while. That's significant investment, not only in time and a bit finance as well, in a youth system for as long as I remember. Wigan have been one of the best at producing the kids and bringing them through, and actually really planning to have them in that team and then pathways for them. So it's no surprise when someone at the top end drops out, they just go next man up and they drop in and they do a really good job for them. They've recruited really well. They've got a lot of depth, particularly through the middle of the field, and even if they rest a couple of internationals, they've probably got a couple waiting to come in. So again, we're not too worried about them. We know it's a tough task, a tough physical task against Wigan, and we're going to have to be really good to be in that game.
What do you want to see from your team then? Finally, you've seen the commitment and the effort. What's next?
Yeah, well that goes without saying. We need to see that, of course. But I'd just like to see a bit of discipline. Let's get that discipline right and try play the game we practice, and try and enjoy ourselves. And again, the message is be brave again. And there's tough in rugby league, and there's smart, and it's not getting them confused. We're going to have a big physical team who, much like Hull Car did to us last week, will try and pin you in the corners, and they'll come out and they'll try and physically dominate you. So you've got to do some of that really tough stuff, and you have to wear a few of them. But we have to be quite smart about how hard we work for each other, and let the ball do a bit of work as well.
Simon, thanks for your time.
No worries.
Hey Grix, just dipping back into injuries, please. How was Jed Cartwright doing? Was it 2 weeks since that foot injury in reserves?
I ain't got much information that way, to be honest. I've been getting on with the day-to-day, getting made down doing that while Jed's in the background. But it's 2 weeks in. Said at the time it'd be minimum 4. So I will have to check on that myself, to be honest. But he's getting on with doing his rehab, as he do.
Joe Cater as well. It's been 2 months now, I think, since 2 months exactly near enough since that injury at London. Obviously, I know it's complex, I know it's tricky, but is there any updates on his back?
So Joe had he didn't have surgery immediately. They tried some injections and bits and bobs to try and alleviate his pain, and the issue with a bulging disc in his lower back. That didn't work. He thought it worked. He got home and he felt brilliant for a day maybe, and then back to as he was. So Joe's had surgery, was successful, I believe. And he's getting on with getting himself right, but unfortunately, just the reality. You've only got one back, and it's quite a serious one, that, so he has to make sure he takes his time and take his care with it. So look, hopefully we see him before the end of the season, but although the return rate of that injury and surgery is really high, he'll be absolutely fine. It just takes some time. It's a serious one he needs to take care of.
What is the injury then? Is it lower back, upper back?
His lower back, a bulging disc in his lower back. But obviously, you'll have seen him at London limping around the field. That was probably the starting of it that week, which you're having referred pain in his calf and so on. So he's done it tough, to be fair. He's been part man, part sofa for a while. So it's nice to see him back around training, smile on his face, and just getting on with it, really. Nothing else he can do.
Obviously, reserves derby play, it was just before the first team derby. Jack Walker scored 2 tries in that game. I'm sure you've watched it back, so does that give you another selection down there? All that down there, but there's something to think about.
Yeah, thought Moy went well again. But yeah, Wacker's banging the frame. He has been for weeks. It's been tough. For him, and he understands that we can't pick everyone, and when someone's going well, generally, unless there's a knock or another significant reason, they keep the shirt, don't they? But I'm not going to tell you a team now, but between them two, obviously one of them will be playing full back, and we'll work that out as the week goes on. But yeah, he's done a good job, and his attitude's been really good with it as well. He's not moaned about playing reserves, because these blokes who've played a significant bit of first team, often they're not that keen on jumping in reserves, but he's been fine with it, and as you said, he's done a really good job when he has been there.
Ask this question to Sutty, but ask it to yourself as well. You mentioned on weekend, effort, yeah, it's there, great, but obviously it's a professional organisation, that should be mandatory, you want more than that. So what are the key messages you're giving to your side this week to go beyond obviously having that effort, but all the smarts that you've been talking about and the bravery and stuff like that?
As I've just said before, getting disciplined about what we're doing. It starts at training. Sort of anything you do is everything you do. Like how you do something, it sort of tells you the bigger picture, and we need to be better on a day to day. And I think they've improved in some regards around professionalism and those a bit. I'm not saying they're totally unprofessional, but there's definitely levels to it, I think, and they are getting better, and that transfers to field in the end. So the professional, disciplined approach to training will help us at the weekend. So yeah, that's it for enjoying it. Well, there's 10 weeks left, and we are up against it. We have got injuries and all that against us, but we can't be kicking stones for the next 10 weeks. We need to get on with it and try and get better. And yeah, discipline towards what we're doing will be really helpful for us.
So we are getting towards the back end of the year, and Hull FC are notorious for slipping away at the back of the end of the year. Is that been spoke of, or is it just in the past and you'll do your own thing now?
Oh, I think we went off that cliff maybe 2 rounds in. No, I've not even thought about it, to be honest. I appreciate that has happened in the past, but yeah, I don't see that being a problem. We're going to try to keep them on their toes, challenge ourselves, challenge each team we play, best we can between now and the end, and irrespective of whatever hurdles might be in front, no one really cares, do they? On the outside, we just have to keep getting on with it and try to keep the chest out and the chin up.
A lot of motivation, a lot of things still to play for. People look at the table and think playoffs are gone, blah blah blah. But in terms of your own pride as a club, as a squad, as a set of coaches, I guess the motivation is obviously there to go just win as many games as possible.
I'd hope so. Yeah, I would definitely hope so. And I think I've said it on occasion before, where everyone here at the moment who's contracted or without a contract, they've all got an opportunity to be here, haven't they? And even if you have got a contract, I think we've seen across the league the movements that don't really mean you're going to be here. So we need to just keep working towards getting better and worry about next year when it comes, because obviously there is a lot of chat about next year and a lot of players coming in and stuff. But yeah, the challenge for our boys is doing our best on a week to week, and again, just trying our best to get better. No worries.
Hi Simon. You mentioned at the weekend he's a bit frustrated with the discipline and sticking to the game plan. And as I said to Liam, and I've spoke to you about it before, Where we're lacking sometimes is giving the game away in the first 10-15 minutes. And when the Leeds and the Warrington game was superb at that, we came out the blocks like Usain Bolt. We fell back again at weekend against Rovers. What can we do?
Yeah, it happens sometimes, doesn't it? We're not alone with that. You watch Super League every week, and RL even. There's probably only a couple of teams, like Penrith generally been very good over the last few years, starting games really well. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's not a planned thing, of course. But yeah, the weekend, we weren't at the races physically. Like all the things that don't take talent, their intent and a desire, but we were just off on them. We were half a second off on most things, and that leads to you pretty much running backwards towards your own line. So yeah, hopefully we've practiced. Obviously, we haven't practiced to start the games, or that game, in poor fashion. But you know, we spoke about it. Sometimes that can make it a bit more, bring it forward to the front of your mind to make sure you're on your job early doors. But starting a game, obviously, starting well always is really helpful. Everyone's a bit positive. 18-0 down, I think it was after 15 minutes. Starting to scratch your head a bit, but it's never by design. Yeah, it's up to the boys to get the job done.
Yeah, and Liam mentioned about it. It's an individual thing where you've got to start thinking about your own performance and making sure you do that. Again, I think that in most sports, including rugby league, you need that standout player who's going to motivate the player. You know, gear them up and you know, spin them a good yard to get them going again.
Yeah, possibly, but so he's right. You've got to have your own internal voice that keeps you on your toes there, and making sure you do your job well. But at the same time, it's a team game, so you've got to make sure you're communicating well and all that. So there's a lot of elements that go into it. But yeah, I think we're in a better spot than we have been. I think how we're feeling about ourselves and what we can do. Yeah, hopefully that transfers to a good start of the weekend, as we just said. But yeah, Wigan are a champion team. They are the champions. They've got everything in their locker at the moment, haven't they? So they don't come any tougher than this one. So we'll see what we're about on Saturday.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a good run into the end of the season anyway. Just lastly for me then, obviously you coach coming in next year. Has there been still communication backwards and forwards between yourselves?
No, I know Richie spoke to John at length, obviously, in the first instance, but they're speaking a lot around recruitment and plans, future plans and whatnot, where we've just been left to get on with it really. John's obviously been within the New South Wales camp as well as assistant there, so between that and his Brisbane commitments, he's obviously had quite a bit on. So I think there's a plan to. I think the game's done now, isn't it? So yeah, in the coming weeks, I'd imagine we'll all be jumping on some calls and we'll getting to know each other a bit in the first instance. But you know, plotting out how we want it to look, a skeleton, if you like, before the meat goes on it.